4 months after it, I was still struggling to walk. And that's when I turned to the energy healing. And like 24 hours later, I was up walking. And with the energy healing, of course, comes the emotional layers and the mental body, the emotional body, the patterns and the stories that we've been holding, what was causing the pain beyond just trying to fix the pain. And I guess the other thing I'll say is, not everything and everyone deserves your time and attention. That is a big one that I think every single client I work with, we have to work through, is we look at time and energy and go, this is how much you have. I literally draw a chart and break it down into blocks, going, okay, you have 10 units of time a day, 10 units of energy.
Here with another episode of Realms of Power. And today I have a local legend, Jaspreet, who does some beautiful women's healing coaching. And, I'd love to welcome you onto our show. So, thanks for coming on.
Hi, Tony. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure and such an honor.
Yeah. So for our audience, Realms of Power, our podcast has really been about how can you stand in your power in different realms? And for some people, it might be their physical powers down. Like as a chiropractor, I see people with pain and nervous system challenges, help them, support them with that. Of course, it could be nutrition, it could be emotion, it could be financial, but in life, there's also relationships and so many different realms. And I'm sure through the work you've done, you've helped a lot of those people. And that's the purpose of this podcast, is to help turn someone's power on in one of those realms. So for our listeners, could you give a little backstory of how you've got into the healing space you're doing now?
Yeah, so I think it's been a very long journey for years, but I think the biggest switch for me happened when I actually had my children. And becoming a mother was the biggest switch for me. I was a big catalyst to bring on my own healing because of the journey I've had with my own wounds, trauma, conditioning, whatever you call it, all of the above. I just wanted to be a really present mom for them. I didn't want to pass on any of my generational trauma or even my personal trauma onto them. And when I started seeing things come through in my own behaviors or the way I would react to things with them, it was like, no, I do not want to be this person. And that's where the biggest change in healing and everything came for me. Yeah.
Being a mother. So what were you doing before you were a mom? Were you sort of working? Were you in the healing space then, or were you doing something different?
Yes and no. I think I've always been pulled towards this direction. So before I had children, I was actually a behavior therapist. I worked with kids on the spectrum. Yeah, and then I had kids and I became a Pilates teacher. And then through my journey with I had a hysterectomy. I had lots of issues in the uterus and I had a lot of pain even post having the surgery. And the modern medicine couldn't help me with the pain. Like 4 months after it, I was still struggling to walk. And that's when I turned to the energy healing. And like 24 hours later, I was up walking. And with the energy healing, of course, comes the emotional layers and, the mental body, the emotional body, the patterns and the stories that we've been holding, what was causing the pain beyond just trying to fix the pain.
Yeah. Sorry, can you say more about the energy healing? Because so many people hear energy healing and they might not really know what it is. And you're like, hang on, I've had hysterectomy, I've had endometriosis, I've dealt with kids with behavioral issues. And then 24 hours later, you're like, oh my God, my body is different. What was that?
Yeah, it was really incredible because, coming from the Pilates world as well, I can rehab myself. I've spent years helping other people rehab so many injuries. But the energy healing was basically from what I had been through as a child. Our body stores those emotions. You don't just feel that emotion, like an emotion lasts in your body for like a small amount of time, but the pattern, the story gets imprinted. The way I look at it is our body holds the whole story, everything that we've been through, whether it's like sexual abuse, grief, guilt, shame. For me personally, there was a lot of grief, guilt, shame, abuse that I was holding. And especially for women, we hold it within the uterus because that's our power point. Like that's the feminine power. storage, and where your power is taken away, whether it's through physical abuse, sexual abuse, being put down, verbal abuse, it all gets stored there. And that manifested for me like really large fibroids and all of that. So once the physical side was done, the doctors did the whole hysterectomy. We have to take this all out, but the energy of it was still there. So my body was still holding that imprint, that energy of going through all of that I had been through. That didn't just disappear just because the uterus was gone. So when I had the energy healing, what the healer did was she was a Reiki master, Karuna master, like pretty full on, like she had done a lot of stuff. And she's amazing. And so when she did the healing on me, then I hadn't told her my story at all. And she was like, right, I can see, yeah, you're holding a lot of shame and a lot of guilt, which the guilt came from I had lost a sister when I was quite young. And I always felt if I had fought harder, maybe I could have saved her. And I won't go into too much details on that. And so, there was the guilt of losing her. There was the shame of what I've been through within my own body and all of that. So when she was able to remove that energy, and then we started working through so she did the energy part, and beyond that, I still had to go through the emotional. Once the energy is done, then the emotions start releasing, like where's this guilt coming from? It then I had to work through all of that and then I also beyond that got into somatic practices to finally work on that physical, mental, emotional layers of it to actually fully heal. But the energy healing of it was a huge that time, because she did the healing, and next day I'm like, I can actually walk, because it got to a point I couldn't drive my kids to school, I couldn't sit in the car. And it's like, it's been 4 months since I had this surgery. It was only meant to be 2 weeks, and I should be able to do everything. So for her to just be able to see, like, I can see all the energy that you're holding in this uterus, and I'm just going to clear it for you, and then be able to walk. But then, of course, beyond that, I had to work through the emotions that came up after that.
I've seen that so many times, and not just as a chiropractor, I feel the body all the time. So I'm feeling the nervous system, and if I keep adjusting and aligning, and I'm like, hang on, this thing isn't clear, and what's beneath that? We shine a light on the actual cause of it. Maybe it's different for everyone. For someone, it is they just hurt their back by digging a trench. For someone else, it's, some stored emotional trauma from some childhood thing. And you can't apply, I think, one technique to fix all people. So, Michael, which is that right energy healer for me? Which is that right chiropractor for me? So everyone's got their own path. And I love what you've said, that after that clearing, and wow, what an amazing change, you still had to do the work. And it's not, everything's magically fixed and my life's perfect on Instagram for the rest of my life. We're still in the actual reality of our world of, oh my God, day to day. And what's the next challenge? And we're on this realm to be able to live and express our best life. So turning your power in that way sounds like it's led you down to a path. And thank you so much for that deep share, because look, it resonates with people who maybe don't even want to talk about some of that stuff. I'll sweep it under the carpet, I'll put it away. But as you said, the body stores it, and it's just going to keep coming up. The dust will still stay under that rug if you've swept it under there. Yeah. So how has that journey led you to doing the work you do now?
So, well, directly after, once I did that Reiki healing, and she actually said to me, you got healer hands, you should go do Reiki. And I'm like, all right, don't have to tell me twice. And I felt amazing. So I'm like, okay. So I did that. And then there was a whole where you have to work through the mindset, because the trauma that I had been holding, it creates that mindset and certain behavior patterns in your life. And then you have to undo that. Just by clearing the energy layer doesn't automatically change your behavior pattern, doesn't automatically change the mindset that you're in. Right. So then I had to work on that part. And so I did more certification. So, with breathwork and somatics, and I became a certified light leader coach, because I wanted to be able to give someone everything, with whether you need more, just the physical pain, the emotional pain, the mental pain. I think they're all these layers, and we need to work through. And so that is what got me into that deeper work, like starting with just the Pilates, with working with just physical bodies. And like you said, you see it as a chiropractor, and there was the same, like people will come with injuries, and sometimes no matter what we're doing, that pain is just not shifting, or, it just keeps moving from one place to the other. And it's like, okay, there's a much deeper root cause of this. And, so now with what I have, I can offer them so much more. We can look at whether it comes from a trauma and we work through that emotional pattern. And, with the energy healing, we even go into whether it's actually coming from a past life, whether there's a soul contract that's creating a friction. Because, most people come to a healer or a coach or anyone when you're kind of feeling stuck or something in your life is not working. And it's like, so my job is like, when someone comes to me, it's like, how do we, like, what is causing this stuckness, this thing that's not working out for you? Why is it? Is it like a soul contract? Is it a past life? Is it a current life? Is it the trauma? Is it just a physical pain? And we can work through that.
Yeah. With some people with past life stuff, I up against that and go, oh, that's not my spiritual belief. That's why it's about finding that right person for you. Like if I'm sort of, hey, who do I see to help me? You've got to trust your intuition and you've got to go, that person feels right. Like Jaspreet feels, what she's saying feels right to me. Or Jaspreet's talking cray, and that's not my lane. And then you go, okay, don't see her. That's not for you, because there's so many people and so many different journeys. It's about resonating and intuiting what is the right practitioner for you. Like the amount of people I've seen as a chiro, like chiro, I love chiro because being in alignment is better. But that doesn't mean that I, as a chiropractor, am right for everyone, or chiropractic is right for everyone, because they might need to see you first or some other type of healer first. So how important do you think is it for people to listen to their intuition and feel a synchronicity with someone that they might want to be going to?
Oh, I think it's huge, because if your body doesn't feel safe, like if it's not resonating, if you don't feel comfortable and you're like, I don't know, I'm unsure, but I'm just going to push through. Look, your body's not actually feeling safe in that environment or with that person. If your body doesn't feel safe, you will know this 100%, Tony. With the nervous system, your nervous system is not going to soften, it's not going to relax. And if your nervous system isn't actually relaxing, nothing is going to work. Like none of the healing, because your energy is going to be blocked. You're not letting that person in. Your body's not allowing, like intention is everything. When you go, like if your body can actually relax and you have that, like, yeah, I trust this person, actually work with the body. And I love what you said about trusting, find the right healer. Not every modality is for everyone. And that's why we have so many modalities out there. And it's not saying one is better than the other. You just, I think, really got to trust your instinct and find someone that resonates with you and is going to help you. And part of like turning your power on, like you say, is about helping them come back to themselves to be able to trust that instinct and go, like, cutting down a lot of the external noise about what everyone else is saying and trust yourself.
Yeah. For me, I think the core of this program is how can we turn someone's power on? Because like I said, people initially might come for support because they're stuck somewhere, because something's not right. And they're trying to look at how they can improve that in whatever realm that is, which is, I think, the foundation of this whole vision of realms of power is what area, if you could benefit from an area, what would that be? And what would give you the most sort of, positive influence in your life? You might go, I need to work on finances, environment, financial, and, I feel under the pump because I don't know what my life purpose is. You might be too split if you're focused on all of them, but focusing on, well, how can we improve that area for you is really, really important. And yeah, I love having varied guests that come on the show that just go, wow, this has been my journey. This is how I can help people because I've been through that and I've helped so many people with so many different things. So can I just touch back onto, I don't know, I feel real burned to ask this about the past life thing, because some people do feel really stuck and they go, I've been to many practitioners. I've tried all the things, and I'm still bucking up and not getting the results. And because they may not even have concepted that perception of previous journeys or time. What's been your experience there, Jaspreet?
Oh, with past life is been massive. There's been patterns and stuff that I saw in my current life, and I'll share a bit of that. So I used to be really, like, I'm really secure in my relationship with my husband. I know he's not going anywhere. He knows I'm not going anywhere. But every time he traveled, something in me would go insane. Like he still travels and I still like am super supportive. I'm not like calling him 24/7, but inside I'm kind of like, and I didn't even know, I'm like, this is not who I am. Why is my body going into this response when nothing has ever happened in our relationship or any relationship ever to make me feel like that? And that is where past life for me was massive, because what has happened to us in our past life, where there was a bit of an abandonment, and now we're back in this life to fix that abandonment, I think. So once we were able to heal that from that past life and cut those cords and stop that energy filtering in, it's like I stopped having those, like, like you almost feel like you're having a panic attack, but you don't know why you're having a panic attack. I don't know if anyone's like going, yeah, that's me, but that was really me. And I was like, it is insane because, yeah, like I said, I'm super secure in the relationship. I've always trusted him, and so there was nothing making me, but my body was just going into that reaction, and that stopped.
Being able to expand your mind and open enough to that, whether we call it past life or for some people that it might just be too hard for them to even.
Yeah. Sorry, can I share another quick thing for past life? Sorry, Tony. It's a client that I worked with, and she came with a lot of physical pain, just going down one leg, and she had tried everything. Like, she's been to the physio, the chiro, the specialist. She has done scans and everything under the sun. She's tried the Pilates and everything. And when we went into a healing session for her, and it was actually coming from a past life. And once we cleared that, pain-free.
Yeah. So that's a perfect example. And thanks for sharing, because I guess what I was saying, some people in their mind can't even fathom that past life is a thing. But most of those people understand that we have what's called DNA, right? And DNA is really, do they really know what that is? And I looked at a photo on Facebook of a friend of mine the other day, hadn't seen him for quite some time. And I knew he'd had a son, and his son had grown up. And then I looked at the son and went, is it him or is it the son? Like, I literally, they look so similar. I couldn't even tell. And of course, some people look a bit like their parents or bring traits through from their parents through their DNA. And then if you go back a generation and a generation prior to that, I think we can't deny that we have brought some things physically into our body through DNA. Anyone that out there is like unsure about, or past lives or my spiritual beliefs, just start thinking about it more in terms of DNA and like in your cellular memory.
Yeah.
Those cellular memories can come through. And that's why when people have, say, a organ transplant and they've, had an organ that's shut down and now they've got someone else's organ, they have to have anti-rejection drugs because your body's recognized that's actually not part of your DNA. And it might keep you alive, and that's amazing. But if we look at the DNA of what's been brought forward from our previous generations, is that a definition that you would sort of flow with in a scientific way to talk about past lives as well?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, I am very on the spiritual realm when it comes to past life, but DNA and what you said, it's more like on generational side, like the generational trauma, because we existed as an embryo, right? Like as a little egg, we existed in our mother's ovaries while our mother was still a baby in her mother's womb before she was actually even physically born. So my children existed within me while I was still in my mother's womb. So every emotion that she went through and felt, I felt, but so did my ovaries. So, and that, that emotional imprint is carried through. And then there's so much scientific research and all that to back all this up as well with the generational. With the soul, I don't know if I have a scientific explanation for the soul part. I think that is very spiritual. But then, there's a lot of physics and stuff that you can get into that explains the energy. Like at the end of the day, we are energy, and energy doesn't die. It just transforms from one form to another. So if you believe in that scientific realm that we're all energy, and so when we physically die and leave this body, that energy doesn't actually energy can't die. Energy just transforms. So then to me, that becomes like that. So that's like your soul, that energy still is going to transform into another being somewhere, somehow. And that's the reincarnation. I mean, that's the closest I can get the science of the soul.
Yeah, look, there is more research, and like I've done a science degree, I've done a master's degree to become a chiropractor, and I love the science. And I was saying that more for a bridge for people who just kind of having that spiritual side, because we could go into a whole spiritual discussion, absolutely. And I agree with you on a lot of things. We don't know each other well enough. We haven't had too many deep conversations, but you can just pick up the essence of some people, and you go, yeah, that's sort of feeling what I'm feeling. Whereas some people may have a religious belief and they have a different framework. Some might be an atheist, some might come from whatever frame they've come from. And then we end up fighting about who's right, who's wrong. And I think that really just adds to the trauma, whereas we're all on our own journey, and, whatever that we've been brought up in this culture. So we've got this belief. I think the cultural part of that is really important. And that does have an impact in our body and our cells. How have you found the cultural side of, we could say traumas or just socially in impacting people's ability to stand in their power?
Oh, massively. So, in like the South Asian culture that I come from, and then growing up in Southeast Asia, it's massive. Like, we are, as women, especially from a very young age, we're really, really trained to be the peacekeeper, be quiet, hold everyone together. You're the one that holds a family together. You're basically responsible for everyone's well-being. It's a very big burden to carry, even from a young age. And then there's this whole other, which is changing now. So, but it really existed in my generation, and I'm not saying it's completely gone. One big thing in the South Asian culture we have is, growing up as girls, we were told that our parents' house is not our home, because you're going to get married one day and your husband's home is going to be your home. So imagine growing up not being told, not being feeling that is your home. Like, what would that do to someone's nervous system? And I think I was much luckier growing up in Southeast Asia with a bit more modern parents. So we weren't like that. Like, I still have a room at my parents' house. I can go anytime I want. But there is that cultural belief, and there are lots of other things like that. So that has a massive impact on how your nervous system is coping. Like, you're literally giving, your body's never known how to feel safe because you've never actually had a home. So then how do you feel safe within your own body? And if you don't feel safe within your own body, how do you turn your own light on? That's really dimming your light. Your power's gone because you've never felt safe enough to be you. And from young age, you've been molded to be a specific way. And I think, I can speak about my culture, but, every culture will have a different version of something where we've all been, as society enlarged, right? There's a lot of molding where we want everyone to be a certain way. And that's a huge part of what happens when I'm working with people, like when we go into like working through the patterns or the trauma or the conditioning, because we're so all being forced into like one tunnel. I call it the train, like everyone's jumping on the same train. And then we're all on this train and we're just going like, everyone go get a degree, get a job by this age, buy a house by this age, have children by this age. And half of us don't even know why we're doing half the things we're doing anymore. And that, to me, that is really not being in your power and really having your light off, because you were just looking at everyone else and getting the external validation and what society wants from us, rather than coming back to ourselves and being in our power. So it's like, I always say to my clients, like, jump off the train. You don't have to be on this train. Jump off, make your own train, make your own car, build a bike, build an airplane, off you go. But it's a lot. Like, the cultural part is a lot, whether any culture you talk about, even like like my kids grew up in New Zealand and now in Australia. The schooling system tries to, there is that, let's all do it this way, and everyone kind of has to fit in a box and be molded. And going back to my own journey, there was another big part, because I refused to let my kids be molded, because I felt like I was a lot. Growing up in Singapore is huge. You have to do well in studies. There's no other way to be.
that's just such a beautiful, simple way of living is your own family, your own generational. Then some people stand in their power, turn their light on to get that going. I love that. So, Jaspreet, can you tell me more about, say, the way you work? Like you do some online coaching, I believe, and you've got some face-to-face people. You work a lot with women and even children, you said. Can you tell us more about the actual business that you would be running?
So, like I was kind of mentioned before, a lot of people will come like because they're feeling something, like they're kind of feeling stuck or they're feeling overwhelmed or things are not working, right? And a lot of times, because of my Pilates background, most of my clients will come with some physical things happening, either like they're having some back pain or hip pain or just that overwhelm, the anxiety. And the way I work is literally looking at the person in front of me and what is it that this person needs. Like, you know how we touched on past lives. If someone doesn't believe in past lives, I just, so you don't have to. We can work on everything else. And eventually, if nothing else works and we need to come back to it, we can discover it later. Because the first point is always, how do we make this person feel safe and held? And then it's about coming up with working through somatics, Pilates, breathwork, journaling, whatever we need, all the different elements to help support them to go from where they are and where they want to be. So like for me, I was like getting being the mother that I wanted to be, what are the patterns that I don't want, but what are the patterns that I did want? How do I get from point A to point B? And that is what I my clients is. A lot of it is changing those patterns. So and that's where the somatics come in really beautifully, because they really help rewire those patterns within our bodies. And we do that through the lens of traditional Chinese medicine meridians. So really looking at where the trauma is stored and which meridian we need to activate, and the breath work, like there's so many different ones that we prescribe. Yeah, so it's really about working with the person in front of me to see what is it that's not working in their life, whether it's actually a physical pain, it's the anxiety, or they're just feeling stuck in life, just feeling that nothing's working and my whole life just feels like a failure. Like I've had people just come and break down going, I just feel like a failure. I don't know how to get out of here. And it's like, okay, what's the next step? Where would you want to be? And then breaking that down and how can I help them through coaching, through the somatics, the breath work, Pilates. Well, Pilates and somatics, right? So the physical, mental, emotional body, all of it to help them get to where they are. And, got some really good results then. So I end up having mums that bring their kids who's been through, say, bullying or whatever, and their light has been turned off. And want to go, how do I bring my child back? And so work with the kids to help them come back into their power. It's always about finding to be able to work with them and not giving them, like, say, a practice regime that is going to be too much for them.
It's unbelievable. So you're doing amazing work. I love that. How would people find you? What would they sort of look at?
So on social media, you can look me up on Instagram, is literally my name, Jaspreet.reclaim her.
Well, look, it's been amazing to have you on the show. I'd love you to share if you've got any final wisdom for our listeners. It's something that you've, repeatedly seen when you give someone a message about turning their power on. Jaspreet, what would that thing be that you would like to share with our audience?
I think the biggest thing is really just trusting your own inner voice and doing what works for you, just because, and I say this a lot even to my own clients, like just because I say do something doesn't mean you have to. You tell me if it's not working for you. For example, like I'll, never say to someone like, you have to do your breath work first thing in the morning. It's like if mornings are really busy for you, don't do it in the morning. It's about like if you're creating any new habit, whether you want to start meditating or journaling or anything that you think is going to help you, it has to work for you. It shouldn't add to your overwhelm, because then you're less likely to stick to it. Right. So finding things that work for you that will help you create that lasting change. And that comes from listening to your own inner voice and see how that works for you. And I guess the other thing I'll say is not everything and everyone deserves your time and attention. That is a big one that I think every single client I work with, we have to work through, is we look at time and energy and go, this is how much you have, like literally draw a chart and break it down into blocks going, okay, you have 10 units of time a day, 10 units of energy. look at all your non-negotiable. I've gone to work, that much time has been taken. My children need that much time or whatever. And then what you have left. Make sure your self-care and looking after yourself is in that non-negotiables. Don't put it in the if that's leftover time, then I'll do. That has to be a non-negotiable, because if you don't look after yourself, it's all going to come down, crumble down at some stage, and you can't pour from an empty cup. We've all heard that.
Not in an ego way, because yes, there's always things to do, but just allowing yourself the space to be able to. For me, that's why we've got a retreat coming up in a few weeks where people just don't take that time for themselves in their Insta life, that we're always on phones, we're always so busy. Actually taking a few days out and just honoring yourself, that really just need to slow down and just take some time to shift. That's what our realms of power is all about. Yeah, we've got a whole bunch of different things that we do there. Even just letting the connections with people in that sort of experience, I think, is amazing. So I love that you're doing the work you're doing. It's phenomenal. Thank you so much for coming on our show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Tony. It's been a pleasure and an honor. And yeah, what an exciting retreat you have coming up.
Yeah, very cool. All right. And to our listeners, once again, you guys are awesome. See ya.